for filming.
Yeah, since you're a cameo. Welcome to LA, or otherwise known as Shaker Heights.
Looks so good when it's not on fire.
Do you want to go for a ride?
Let's do it. So Liz, we're driving right now through the neighborhood that you guys actually filmed in, right?
Yes, Hancock Park. It's where our Richardson house was, our practical house.
Some of the conversations, the really pivotal moments that happen between two characters, in the book, they're not in a car, but in the show, they're set in a car. And I love that you made that choice, and I'm wondering why you did that.
Where do teenagers in some ways get the most privacy? And where are the places where you have the hardest conversation?
Yeah, it does feel like this little bubble where you feel like you're alone. You're sort of caught in there together, and so you can have those really intimate conversations.
I feel like there were a lot of scenes with like Elena and Izzy, for instance.
You shouldn't let those girls write a story for you. If they're saying something untrue, then you should change the story.
And the idea that Elena thinks that Izzy can change her story, can change who she is,
right,
is so telling in that moment. It shows that they're just not seeing the world in the same way at all.
Are they saying something untrue?
Of course it's untrue.
The subtext of the scene is to ask, like, are you gay?
Are you gay?
I think what Elena is saying in that scene is if you are, tell me.
So one of the scenes that in the book was not in a car that was transferred into a car. Elena drives Pearl home, and there's this intimate moment. And Elena's sort of subtly kind of like prying for information.
Yes. So is it just you and your mom?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you two must be so close.
From Pearl's point of view, this lady who does the job that she kind of wants to do is driving her home, is showering her with attention, and a kind of attention that she doesn't always get from her mom. There is this real moment of connection that happens between them in that car.
Yeah.
I write too. Poetry, it's not the same as what you do, I know, but it's...
I'm sure it's wonderful. I'd be curious to read your work.
You know, when Elena says at the end of that scene, you're in Shaker Heights now, anything is possible, what she means is you have us now.
Yeah, it's almost like you're one of us, you're part of the family.
Yeah.
And we're driving now in sort of the modern version of what Elena Richardson's car would have been.
Yes, it's a Lexus LX 2020 model instead of the 97 model. Why did you pick a Lexus if you could have picked any car for Elena to drive?
I mean, what I remember from growing up in Shaker at that time was that kids whose parents were driving Lexuses were the kinds of kids who were like the Richardsons. I think back to being a teenager and having conversations with my mom or my dad in the car. I feel like there's something freeing about it because you're in here, it's private. A friend who's got teenagers was telling me, like, when you get to have a teenager, they're like, take them for a drive when you need to have a talk.
Yes, I love that.
It's so fun to just get to talk about the project and hang out.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for taking me for a drive. This is really fun.
Presented by Lexus.
The sweeter memories of young Reese dancing with her beau in Paris. It was really beautiful because with a focus you could isolate them in this bubble.
I was really excited. In the book, you get to see Mia in her past, to show Elena as somebody who could have taken a much different path, who had this fire and this passion and this thirst for life.
I'm not ready to go back. I don't want to live with some what if hanging over me.
But how do we stay together if you're here?
I really love playing with the idea of the what ifs and these other chapters of your life that you have to leave behind.
So how many drinks are we gonna have before you admit the truth?
It's like one day you just wake up and it's settled. You are who you are and you don't remember deciding.
It really explores identity and what it means to be a mother and how you become a mother.
The show goes over so many different topics like racism and sexism and adoption and abortion.
What is it, honey? What?
I think in 5 especially, Lexi and Elena, their arc is so similar. Like, you're looking at this wrong, you have a myopic point of view.
If this got out, if people found out, it'd actually matter, you know?
Mia is really passionate about 2 things, being a mother and being an artist. And she is really driven to protect Pearl.
It breaks my heart that she only sees what you can do for her.
In my discussions with Liz Tickler, there was this idea of intercutting between those 3 moments in these 3 women's lives. They're all in three completely different emotional states. To juxtapose them that way creates a very interesting and moving experience for the viewer.
It's not until 106 that we really understand, how does Elena become the Elena that we know? How does Mia become the Mia that we know? It's a Genesis story, it's just told later in the series.
In the book, Elena's history is sort of alluded to very briefly in flashbacks. In the series, we get to see that much more fleshed out.
It's the happier time when she was happy with her family, but happy with herself. She was ready to get back to work.
Everything is going exactly as she has planned, and then things start to unravel.
Her bubble of privilege really isolates her from having to examine herself.
And then we get to see what happens when you're stressed, struggling, but you have all the resources in the world.
I'm pregnant again. I just got back and now I'm gonna be derailed again.
You have money and resources, and there is no reason that you can't have another baby.
Is not wanting another one a reason?
Not for people like us.
Young Mia's house has the same organized, controlled life that honestly Shaker Heights has. It's not as affluent, but it's this family who's really trying to get their kids on the right path.
This was hard because how do you also get at this question of deserving and who deserves what?
In this episode, we realize the stakes for Mia, that she has secrets that she's protecting.
How am I supposed to come up with $12,000 for next year?
You listen to me, just find a way. Do what you have to do.
There is no pressure. There is no rush.
I can't do it for less than 12.
What was important to me was that what happened in the 80s for these two characters all happen as memories.
We're swinging back and forth between Shaker Heights of the early 1980s and New York of the 1980s, using color and camera movement to add elements that are felt as well as seen.
When you remember a story, you remember very specific moments of it, but maybe not the rest. Mia will remember the faces of somebody on the train, but she doesn't remember the walk home, so we can just jump cut. I think some of the things that you almost see as bad behavior earlier on, when you see what their story is, you not only forgive them for it, you love them for it, because you'll see yourself at various points in each of the characters. I think it will make you constantly question yourself.
Did you consciously abandon your daughter in order to seek help, or did you suffer from a postpartum break? Because it can't be both.
There is a privilege that is afforded to women like Linda. People see them as a better mother just because financially they are better able to provide.
You earn $2.35 an hour, is that correct?
That's what Bill knew going into it, because several times during the episode he says,
people like Bibi Chow don't win.
Because he knows the judge is just going to see her and that's enough.
I have everything except Mei Ling. The most important thing is she can control her life.
All mothers struggle, but you can't put a price on a mother's love for her child.
These characters are blind to so much in themselves and in their families, and I think everybody can relate to that.
We wanted to make Shaker feel like there is deep inequity, and it may look a certain way to the eye, but that doesn't mean that inside of it, it feels that way to individuals.
Whenever I tell people I got into Princeton, the first thing that goes through their head is, oh, it's because he's black.
The Lexi Bryan scene was one of my favorite things I've ever shot. The job of a director is to understand who these people are and to show it to the audience.
These are real characters who are being confronted with real truths about themselves.
But you don't know what it's been like for me either. Most of the characters in the show on the surface seem very picturesque.
I'd like to make a toast to Alexandra.
But underneath, all of the people in it are struggling.
It's important to me that people allow themselves to be confronted with things that make them uncomfortable.
The scene where Elena reveals to Pearl who her father is one of the worst things that a character could do. until you think about the fact that Elena is trying to help her best friend keep her baby. That's one of the things I love about this show. Nobody's ever entirely right, and nobody's ever entirely wrong. This show lives in the gray areas. This was the best example of that.
People are resilient, even from total devastation. They start over and they find a way.
The way that Mia describes the prairie fire, she talks about this metaphor.
Sometimes you have to scorch everything to start over.
When all hope is lost, it's actually an opportunity for new growth that might even be healthier and better.
Shaker Heights is a very key factor. For her rebellion, they want to conform her to someone she isn't. That's what we do in this house, right? Throw away the things we don't like.
I identify with Izzy. I felt sort of like lesser than my siblings.
With each character, they have a moment of change.
Lexi is breaking under the pressure.
I'm not perfect! Yes, you are!
They're all realizing how screwed up their situation is as well.
Her siblings are the ones who realize it's all about Izzy, the oppression of this beautiful soul.
Maybe Izzy's the only one who actually had it right.
We were very intentional about doing a different ending than the book.
And I loved that the writers thought of that.
It had to make sense to their characters to do it, but it also had to come out of a moment of chaos.
Everything that's happened in the past 7 months has affected everybody.
Our unlived lives go on to affect our children.
For me, Elena started the fire. Who lit the match? Who poured the gas? That's a different story. But on some level, Elena started this fire.
If Izzy didn't do this, then who did?
She's accepting responsibility for all the choices she's made. She's also, in an ultimate tiger mom move, trying to protect her children.
I did it.
The end of this show is so spectacular. I can't.
You're always my mother.
Pearl accepts Mia and loves her. I think that has a profound impact on her ability to love herself and to accept her own past.
The thing that always moved me is that people can change and people can want to burn down the things that confine them.
I think we've done our job if we spark conversation.
Talking about motherhood, talking about adolescence.
All of these issues have come right up to the surface of our current cultural conversation.
The more we soften it and say, it's not that bad, but it's still bad, the more we're letting ourselves and our culture off the hook.
It made me emotional. But it was just really a collaborative effort, and we worked really hard, and I think we made something really impactful.
I thought I wanted to be made of little growth.